Hello, today we are going to analyze the weaknesses of Trump versus Kamala. This is the second part in a four-part series of SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats with respect to Trump and Kamala. Today we will look at their political vulnerabilities, which can influence their effectiveness and public perception. We will first look at a weakness of Trump and then Kamala, one by one. Trump is a deeply polarizing figure in American politics. His outspoken style and controversial statements have divided opinion on him very sharply. To take an example, his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, including downplaying its severity and promoting unproven treatments, led to significant criticism and loss of support from moderate and independent voters. This polarization limits his appeal to a broader electorate, which can be detrimental in elections, where broad-based support is crucial.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Said many times that the U.S. is doing far better than any other country when it comes to testing.
Yes.
Why does that matter? Why is this a global competition to you if everyday Americans are still losing their lives and we're still seeing more cases every day?
Well, they're losing their lives everywhere in the world. And maybe that's a question you should ask China. Don't ask me, ask China that question, okay? When you ask them that question, you may get a very unusual answer. Yes, behind you, please.
As Vice President and former Senator, Harris has faced criticism for her record on key issues, particularly criminal justice reform and her tenure as California Attorney General. Her record as Attorney General, including her stance on prosecuting cases and handling of certain criminal justice policies, has been scrutinized by both progressives and conservatives. This can impact her appeal to voters who may question her commitment to progressive reforms or her effectiveness in implementing them.
And I'm proud of that work.
I want to bring in Congresswoman Gabbard. Congresswoman Gabbard, you took issue with Senator Harris confronting Vice President Biden at the last debate. You called it a, quote, false accusation that Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response?
Trump has faced numerous legal issues, including investigations into his business practices and his role in the January 6th Capitol riots. The impeachment proceedings against him, first over his dealings with Ukraine and later over his role in the January 6th events, highlighted these controversies. These controversies can erode trust and can be used by opponents to undermine his credibility and suitability for office.
2 days left after 4 tumultuous years in power, Donald Trump has just become the first president in U.S. history to be impeached twice. Members of the U.S. House of Representatives have formally charged him with inciting insurrection after last week's deadly assault by his supporters on the Capitol. The impeachment vote was to decide whether or not the president should stand trial. The answer was yes. He will now go on trial in the upper house, the Senate, though it's not sure when. Donald Trump is one of just 3 presidents to be impeached, and now the only one to be impeached twice. The vote took place in the last half hour.
Harris has sometimes struggled with clear and impactful communication, which can affect her public perception and effectiveness. Her responses to crisis or debates have occasionally been perceived as lacking in clarity or decisiveness, such as her handling of questions on immigration policy. Effective communication is crucial for political leaders, and any shortcomings here can affect her ability to rally support and convey her message effectively.
I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come.
That was Vice President Kamala Harris in June of 2021 during a visit to Guatemala, where she told locals intending to migrate not to enter the United States. Since then, the U.S. has reported record levels of illegal border crossings, peaking in December of 2023 with 250,000 encounters.
Trump's policy positions have often been inconsistent, which can lead to confusion and criticism. His stance on issues like trade and foreign policy sometimes shifted, such as his initial opposition to China, which later softened. This inconsistency can weaken his policy effectiveness and make it harder for voters to understand his long-term vision.
Donald Trump spoke with China's Xi Jinping in a phone call late Thursday, ending weeks of uncertainty in Washington's approach to Asia. Trump told Xi that he would honor the One China policy, which has long underpinned U.S.-Sino relations. The White House said Trump affirmed the policy at the request of President Xi, and that the pair had a lengthy, extremely cordial call. The phone call was likely to help smooth relations between the two nations, which had been rocky since Trump won the election.
They haven't played by the rules, and I know it's time that they're going to start.
Trump has taken a much more aggressive stance toward China than his predecessor in the lead-up to his inauguration. Tensions had escalated after he accepted a call from Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen 2 months ago. Taiwan is a sensitive topic since China considers it a breakaway province. Trump later suggested in an interview with the Wall Street Journal that the One China policy, under which the U.S. agrees not to recognize Taiwan diplomatically, was negotiable, sparking criticism from Beijing.
Being the first female, Black, and South Asian vice president, Harris faced high expectations and scrutiny, which can both be a strength and a challenge. Her historic role often leads to increased criticism and unrealistic expectations, making her achievements and challenges more visible. This heightened scrutiny can lead to a more polarized view of her performance, affecting her overall effectiveness and public image.
Presidential candidate and was a standout in several high-profile Senate hearings, so in a lot of ways already a national figure. Our Rachel Scott is outside the senator's home in Washington, and like we say, she's already a national figure, but she's still about to reintroduce herself in a way on an even bigger stage. Rachel.
TJ, good morning. That's exactly right. And as one voter who gathered here overnight put it, regardless of your politics, this is monumental. But Senator Kamala Harris is no stranger to making history. The daughter of Indian and Jamaican immigrants, Kamala Harris was born in California, a child of Oakland.
My mother was one of the greatest sources of inspiration in my life. I was taught that I had a responsibility to be a part of the fight for justice.
The Howard University graduate became the first Black woman to be elected district attorney in San Francisco. After her inauguration, she said her office was totally empty, except for a chair in the middle. Writing in her autobiography, "I was happy to take my seat."
As a young district attorney, I walked into the courtroom for the first time and said the 5 words that would guide my life's work. Kamala Harris, for the people.
But faced tough questions about her record.
But when you had the power, why didn't you try to effect change then?
Struggling to keep momentum.
The weaknesses of both Trump and Harris reflect broader challenges in their political careers. For Trump, his polarizing nature, legal troubles, and policy inconsistencies present significant hurdles. For Harris, her mixed policy record, communication challenges, and the weight of historic expectations influence her political landscape. Now, here is a joke to lighten up your mood. After the president's annual physical, his doctor delivered the news. Mr. President, the good news is that you have 2 sides of your brain. The bad news is that on the left side, there isn't anything right, and on the right side, there isn't anything left.